All right, Molly. So I'm going to start with a very broad question for you.
Mhm.
What brought you to the field of nutrition and dietetics?
Yes, yes. Okay, so we kind of take it back a little bit to
Take
when I
us
was like,
back.
yeah, to like maybe high school. Originally, I wanted to be a pastry chef. I
Wow.
wanted to go into food. I always loved food. Which we can, talk about at some point, but really kind of, I think, came down to my past with like disordered eating and eating disorder. I was like obsessed with food. So I wanted to be this pastry chef, but I was like not eating anything I was making. So somewhere down the line, it kind of shifted. I think I just didn't know if I wanted the lifestyle of being a chef or whatever shifted, or whether it was like not great intentions dealing with like disordered eating, but kind of niche down to like more of like the nutrition aspect. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of how I got into that. And then I figured out like, what do you do when you want to go into nutrition? You become a dietitian. And then I found schools to go into dietetics. So I did go into college kind of knowing that I wanted to be a dietitian this whole time. So that's kind of how I got into the field on a broad spectrum.
Okay, that is so interesting. I did not know that
Yeah.
about you.
Yep.
So, okay, what is the best dessert that you can make? Like, what
Oh
is
gosh.
your go-to? Like, if you're gonna try to impress someone or you want to bake something for someone that you like love, what are you making them?
Oh, what's funny is I don't really bake that much anymore.
You've retired from your pastry chef life.
Yes, I would say like my top hit when I bring it to parties is not even like it's not even that intense, or it's really very simple, but like scotcheroos, I think they're called other things other places,
Oh, I don't know
but
what a
essentially
scotcheroo is.
it's like a like Rice Krispies, peanut butter, corn syrup mixed together, and then like a layer of like chocolate on top.
Yes, I know exactly
Okay,
what you're talking
I
about.
know you probably knew what they were. Yeah,
Yes. Okay,
yeah.
I feel like it's just like I don't even know if I have a name for it. It's just like a Rice Krispie treat with peanut butter and chocolate, but I know exactly what you're talking about, and they are
Yes,
delicious.
yes. We had some in the dining hall in undergrad, and me and one of my best friends were like obsessed with them. So I just like learned how to make them, and I feel like I kind of tweaked the recipe to make it good. But again, it's nothing crazy, but usually a top hit.
Yes, definitely a hit. So it's interesting hearing your story about how like you were like, okay, like I kind of faded away from the pastry chef. And like you said, like chefs just have a completely different lifestyle, right? They're working nights, they're working weekends. It's like
Yeah.
restaurant business. It's just so different, the service industry. But do you feel like there was a part where you're like, well, I'm not eating this. This food is air quotes bad from a moral standpoint. I don't want to gain weight because you kind of just alluded to like disordered eating. So what were some of those thoughts that were ruminating or kind of the narrative that was going on in your head that made you switch to nutrition?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think it was a lot of like the shame of feeling like shame and fear of like fearing that like, well, if I go down this path, I will be around all of this food all the time. I'll be
Hmm.
making this food. I'll end up, um like overeating all this food, possibly, gaining weight. I won't be like in a small body anymore. So that kind of fear. Um, as well as like going, if I chose like a nutrition profession, it was almost like I had not an excuse. I always had a reason to like quote unquote like eat healthy, or like this would keep me in a
Hmm.
smaller body because I'm going to have to be, if I'm going to be this like stereotypical dietitian, like people have to trust me. And they can't trust me if I'm not in a large body, which is extremely not true. But that's like what was kind of going on in my head.
100%. That was the narrative
Mhm.
in the weight-centric world that we were taught of like our body as our business card as a dietitian or a
Yes.
personal trainer. And so that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So you switch over to the nutrition field. You are going through college, undergrad, nutrition. You decide you want to be a dietitian. Were you always and I think I know the answer to this just hearing some of the disordered thoughts, but I want to hear kind of how you transitioned because you weren't always a weight inclusive provider, right? Or knowing that was your path. So when were you introduced to intuitive eating? When did you say like, "Oh, wait, like I guess I'm going to give you twofold question. My head's spinning. So like cuz we're talking two different things here. We're talking your professional journey, but now we're also like intertwining your personal journey. So I'd love to hear how those shifted, if they shifted at the same time, however you want to answer. I know I'm throwing a lot at you.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. So kind of wishy-washy answer, yes and no, if I was always working as a weight inclusive provider. So I went into college. I think I had the stereotypical kind of weight-centric mindset, but mostly when it came to me, I never quite was like really at any point in time wanted to go into weight loss necessarily. Like
Hmm.
it always didn't feel quite right to me without really knowing the why behind it. And I think once I kind of got into college, I was like actively kind of recovering and slash like had recovered a little bit. It's kind of in that like what I call like pseudo or quasi recovery.
Hmm.
And that kind of lasted throughout college. But so I went to college kind of with that mindset. Always kind of knew it just something was kind of off with it. So I never quite, yeah, really went into the weight loss realm. And then again, I was struggling with a lot of my own disordered eating and eating disorder still, food rules, things like that. And sorry, I lost my train of
You were
thought.
totally fine.
Okay. Oh yeah, so I was always, and with that, so I was always really interested in like the intersection of nutrition and like mental health and psychology. So I
Okay.
always knew I wanted to do something with that. Um, and then it was like junior year of college, and I found this dietitian YouTuber, Becca Bristow. I don't know if you would know who that is. She doesn't, I
Okay.
don't think, no, she really does too many dietitian or intuitive eating things now, but at the time she just did a lot of educational content. And I saw she did a video on intuitive eating, and I had never heard of it before. And she's describing it, and like all these light bulbs are going off in my head. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like this is like the words I've been looking to label like what I want and like my healing journey. And I just couldn't like I didn't know about it, right? So that's kind of like where everything kind of kicked off. And then I was at a conference that same year, and I started following some of the speakers. And so I was like, let me just make like a professional Instagram page. And so that's when I started my Instagram page, and I started following, dietitians and things like that. And I was then intuitive, it kind of like opened up a whole new world into intuitive eating because I was not we were not being taught about it in school. It was never mentioned in my curriculum that I remember. It was truly like all social media and connecting with dietitians. So that's kind of how it led me into like labeling it as like, okay, I want to do something like this, or something with disordered eating, eating disorders, things like that. So that's kind of my journey, and I think that also helped my personal journey as well because as I was actually trying to like teach intuitive eating or the principles of somewhat while I was in school, I was also like trying to apply them to my personal life. So I
I
think
feel
that
like
answered everything.
totally, totally. And I'm sorry, I'm throwing so much at you, but I resonate so much with your story because I was very similar. Like when I found intuitive eating, it was the verbiage that I didn't know existed, and
Yeah.
it put into words what I was feeling, thinking, but I didn't know it existed. And similarly to you, like as I started to organically shift my practice that way and my beliefs that way within nutrition, I wasn't necessarily like, I'm going to become an intuitive eater. It just
Mm-hmm.
naturally impacted me in my own relationship with food and body image. Of course, there's no way it couldn't. Um, so that's really cool to hear. And it's the amount of people that have a story similar to ours, where it was like social media was what
Mm-hmm.
even even educated us as dietitians, which is crazy. And that's where we need so much change within the nutrition education system. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. So I'm interested to hear because you and I met at our anti-diet Sunday Fun Day event in Denver at the Food and
Yes.
Nutrition kind of expo conference. So you were already in your dietetic internship at that point, right?
Past it. So I've been a dietitian
Okay.
for it's 4.5 years. And it was
Okay.
like this summer would be four. I don't even know, 5 years. I don't know, something
I
like
don't
that.
know either. People ask me, and I'm like, I think I'm over like double digits now. And I'm like, that's insane because it feels like I just became a dietitian yesterday. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
same.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I found you later into your dietitian journey. But
Yes.
okay, so you were introduced to intuitive eating and then talk to us about how, like, what was your first job in the field of dietetics and how did you implement the weight inclusive kind of principles and intuitive eating mindset?
Yes. Okay. So I finished my internship in 2020. So we're talking COVID and applied to pass my board exam in that summer of 2020. And no one was hiring. So it was really, really hard to get a job in general, much less like a niche private practice job, like,
Yep.
like I do now. So applied to a gazillion jobs, and I finally got one job offer from a hospital. And I knew I hated clinical, like I was never interested in it in school. And but like through my internship I was like, I mean, I can do it, like it's
Yep.
okay. So I got this job at this like really tiny hospital. I'd never even heard of the town when I applied to it in Wisconsin, but moved, and it was, I mean, I did kind of everything because it was a small hospital. So the dietitian, there was only a few dietitians that kind of did everything. I did a little bit of outpatient, I did inpatient, dialysis, cardiac rehab,
Wow.
diabetes, just kind of like, I mean, I did everything. So I still didn't love it. But anyway, so it was really the outpatient that kind of was the hard part because there was a lot. I mean, most people were coming for like weight loss, being referred for weight loss. And I just like felt so icky
Hmm.
about it. It's just like, gosh, and like I'm not like helping that. I don't know, like, and I just like couldn't morally like tell someone how many calories to eat to lose weight because
Yep.
one, we how would I know that that would technically make them lose weight? There's so many things that go into
Yes.
it, and it was just so hard. So I felt like I was like trudging through those outpatient appointments, just trying to teach them to like add things to their diet and like take them, like just basically not really talk about the weight portion. Usually dietitians would like the first thing they did would weigh the patient and then bring them into the room. And I just did not weigh them unless they particularly like asked for it. So I felt like I was kind of trying to like sneak in a little like weight neutral specs into the outpatient, the clinical outpatient world. So that was really hard, but that's kind of where I went first. And then I did long-term care, which wasn't really like weight centric, so just kind of whatever. But and then kind of found you guys in private practice. And so that's been really awesome. And I've been able to actually like do what I've like wanted to do this whole time.
That's incredible. Well, I love that you brought that up, though, about bringing in weight neutral and weight inclusive specs into these jobs that are really weight centric at the core. Because if the, hospital that you're working at and like you said, the doctors are referring for weight loss, but I talk to so many nutrition interns or like newer dietitians that will be like, "How are you hiring?" And I'm like, "I wish we could hire everybody."
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't find that job, like you said, that perfect job that is intuitive eating, specific or aligned with weight inclusive care, you can do your best to kind of introduce people to, like I always say, like plant seeds of
Yeah.
something. And like you said, like specs, just little things here and there that, of course, if the person's saying, I want intentional weight loss, like the, it's really, really difficult, but it still allows you to introduce people to something that they wouldn't otherwise be introduced to. And it's a really difficult place to be as a provider
Mm-hmm.
because you feel this like cognitive dissonance of like, I don't want to do this and I can't do this, but it allows you to introduce people to something that they wouldn't probably be introduced to. So I lived a few years of my practice like that. And I almost, it gets exhausting because you feel like you're trying to convince people or like
Oh my gosh,
defend
it's so
something.
tiring.
But it can be really, there are some conversations that would come from it. I'm sure you experienced too, where like people would be really interested in it and would be like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I had no idea. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I got to be the one that introduced them. Obviously, now working with Find Food Freedom, you you have such a different clientele where it's like they know what intuitive eating is, they know what the anti-diet approach is, they want to learn about this. They just don't know how to do it. So
Yeah.
what has been your favorite What's your favorite part about working one-on-one with clients? It could be clients in general, or it could be clients that are looking to become intuitive eaters.
Mhm.
What is your favorite part?
Yeah, I think definitely just like being able to watch the transformation happen. In my particular case, I felt like I didn't get help, or I wish I would have had someone like me or our team when I was struggling. And so it took a lot longer to kind of like
Hmm.
recover and get into intuitive eating. And it's really, really cool to see that transformation happen like a lot sooner and just like a lot allow people to just like start living their lives a lot sooner. And, so it's really cool to see that transformation and help clients just see like the other side. I feel like it's kind of like you're behind a fence when you're entrenched in diet culture and dieting and disordered eating, and it's like you have no idea what the other side looks like. This is all you
Yes.
know. And it's like if you can just like give them that like that stool, that step ladder to just like peer over, at least be like, oh, this is what's coming, like, and just kind of like experience little spurts of like food freedom is like, it's just so cool to see. I love that. And I just love being able to like give them an alternative to realize like life can be like different than this. It doesn't, you don't have to restrict all the time. Like food can be your friend. So it's just really cool to do that.
That's incredible. And it's really cool. Like, I obviously knew about your previous roles, but to know that this was one of the first roles that you really got to dig
Mm-hmm.
into what you wanted, it is such a freeing feeling as a provider to do that and to work with people that want to do this work. Um, I love the analogy that you just gave too. It's like I was picturing someone like peering over, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes giving those analogies can be so helpful because it really showcases. I had a client that I always quote her now. She said, like, when I was in diet culture, it was like I was seeing in black and white, and now that I'm an intuitive eater, it's like my world is full of color, and I'm just looking through a completely different lens. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like that is
Yes.
such a beautiful image of how much more full your life is and how much more joy it brings. And like we always say, like it's so much more than just food. It truly opens up your entire world.
Yeah, it like bleeds into other parts of your life. And
Hmm.
I love that. So yeah.
It's incredible. So, for those listening today, this is a really broad question, and you can take it any way you want. If they don't remember anything else we talked about, but you're like, this is a mantra that I've really been holding on to. This is a quote that I really like. This is like something I want to leave people with. It could be related to food and body image, it could not be. What is something you want to leave them with today?
Yeah. Okay. A quote that I really like to say a lot, and I feel like it tends to resonate with a lot of clients, is about body image. And I like to talk about it when people are kind of spiraling and like looking back at pictures when they're seeing a smaller version of themselves and thinking like, it was better then. But then, 20 years from now, they can look back at this photo and think the same thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And the quote, I guess, is that like body image has nothing to do with your actual body size and everything to do with the way your brain perceives your body. And so there's nothing wrong with your body size at all. Body image is all how we're kind of perceiving our body.
Ooh, I love that. That's a good bomb to drop.
Yeah.
At the end of the episode. But I think it's so important for people to hear, especially as you were using the words like transformation before of like going from diet culture to intuitive eating and food freedom. And I think sometimes people can so easily think like transformation is physical, right?
Yes.
Just because that word, like I think of it because I was at like an Orange Theory one time and they were having like transformation challenge and it was like all weight loss. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. So obviously, I know you're not talking about a physical transformation. You're talking about this like transformation from diet culture to intuitive eating. But that same goes for body image. It's like when we're healing our relationship with our body, it's the relationship. Like the physical body doesn't have to change to get to a place of acceptance or neutrality or peace. Um, and that's so different from what we're spoon fed from diet culture. So.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, let us know because I love your professional page. You always share such good tidbits on there. Where can people follow along if they want to see more content from you, Molly?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It is at Molly's Nutrition. So
Perfect. And I will put in the show notes below. People will be able to click the link to get their insurance benefits checked, to book with you one-on-one. And we take insurance, which is super exciting. So we can work with as many people as possible.
agreed.